Good afternoon. Before I begin, I wish to acknowledge that we're gathered here today on the territory of the signatories of Treaty 7, and we also recognize the deep connection that the Métis people of Alberta have with this land. It's so great to be here in Calgary as the city celebrates Stampede. And it's been so great for our NDP team to speak to so many Calgarians this week. I'm joined by my colleague, Nicole Goehring, MLA for Edmonton Castle Downs, and our critic for culture. We're also pleased to be here today at the Calgary offices of New World Interactive, a thriving digital media company that opened its studio here in 2019. I want to thank New World's People and Experience Manager, Mitchell Hart, for kindly hosting us today and offering some of his perspectives. We're here today to talk about the highly competitive digital and interactive media space and why Alberta is so far behind the rest of Canada. First, a little trip down memory lane. In 2016, our NDP government started talking to Alberta digital media companies about what it would take to grow this industry. BioWare put Alberta on the map, and there were smaller studios starting to spin up, but nowhere near the kind of growth happening in BC or Quebec. These companies told us the same thing. Alberta is simply not competitive enough. Other jurisdictions were doing more to support and grow the industry. So we set out to change that. In 2018, our government brought in the Interactive Digital Media Tax Credit, offering a 25% on wages, salaries and bonuses paid to employees working to create interactive digital products like video games and post-production film and TV. An additional 5% credit was offered to companies who hired from underrepresented demographics, including women, Indigenous people, and people with disabilities. And I must add that Alberta was the only jurisdiction in Canada to offer the 5% diversity top-up. So a 30% tax credit in direct competition with Quebec and Ontario's credits, and much better than BC's 17.5% exemption. In the battle for investment and economic growth, Alberta's digital media tax credit was a direct salvo on these other jurisdictions, sending the signal that Alberta was ready to set up and compete in an industry worth $5.5 billion in national GDP. And it was working. We were seeing significant interest from companies here looking to expand, like New World Interactive. Sadly, against the best advice of business leaders and economists, this credit was one of the first of many good economic programs the UCP cancelled after the election. At the time, the Premier called it a boutique program, one not needed for growth. Here we are, 3 years later, and Alberta has fallen behind. According to a recent report from the Entertainment Software Association of Canada, or ESAC, Alberta is missing out on investment and losing ground. While tech investment in Calgary increased last year, it pales in comparison to increases seen across the country. As a whole, the country saw a 200% increase in investment last year, which was led by Toronto, who saw a 400% increase to $5.5 billion. Meanwhile, Calgary increased by 7% to $322 million. So while the pandemic has led to a boom in tech, it's not happening here to the same degree. Tech companies like New World are working incredibly hard, but they aren't being supported enough to attract investment and keep up with our competitors. The end result is stagnant growth and fewer jobs for Albertans at a time when we could have been drawing global investment and creating more jobs. We have to turn this around, and that's why we're here today to say that if Albertans elect an NDP government next year, we will level the playing field and we will compete. We will restore the interactive digital media tax credit and we will draw investment here. This will be done in our very first budget to give companies as much time as possible to benefit and begin attracting investment and growing. We want everyone from the smallest studios to the biggest names in the industry to call Alberta home. And that means helping Alberta companies grow their studios here in Calgary, not looking for greener pastures somewhere else. I'll now turn things over to Mitch to tell us a bit more about what this change would mean for New World.
Thank you very much to Deron and to Nicole. I wanted to say that New World is a studio that actively values happiness, inclusivity, teamwork, and creativity, with an emphasis on being people first with all of our staff. We are aggressively recruiting talent across the board to produce next level experiences for our players, and the reintroduction of this tax credit would allow New World to grow within Alberta instead of looking to other jurisdictions when hiring. And also help foster a stronger ecosystem for relevant post-secondary education programs and the development of new intellectual property. If Alberta's tax incentive was brought back, it would enable us to grow and expand our Calgary and wider Alberta presence as we continue to fill many of our open roles at this time. Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks, Mitch. I'm now going to invite, we're going to keep the dance going. I'm going to invite Nicole to provide some further comments, please.
Thanks, Deron, and thank you again, Mitch, for hosting us today. We know Alberta boasts beautiful scenery, architecture, streetscapes, and landscapes, which are major draws for film production companies from across the globe. Indeed, in recent years, we have seen Alberta grow to become a premier hotspot for shooting film. Most recently, the movie Ghostbusters Afterlife was shot around southern Alberta, as was HBO's The Last of Us, which just wrapped shooting a few weeks ago. Now, while these projects were shot in Alberta, much of the work completing the computerized digital special effects may have been done elsewhere. But as this industry grows, we need to do more to support it through post-production as well. Because while Alberta has generous film credits that are attracting big projects, today's announcement of the digital media tax credit also helps grow companies that support film and television projects in areas like special effects and digital animation, and in areas most of us are not even imagining today. One Calgary app called Tably was the only Canadian finalist at the International South by Southwest Pitch competition for startups. It's an interactive technology that helps vets and owners care for cats. This tax credit works and has tremendous potential to draw more investment to Alberta companies and further diversify our cultural industries. I'm very pleased to hear this announcement today, and with that, we would be happy to take your questions.
Thank you. With that, we'll take a pass for questions in the room. Seeing none, we'll go to questions online. A reminder to press *9 or use the raise hand function on Zoom. Please state your name and outlet at the top. And seeing none, that concludes today's press conference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.